Good evening, everyone.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. This is going to be a great hour or so. Lopaka Kapanui is widely respected, a person after my own heart, a storyteller, does ghost walks. We're going to talk to him about all those things and the mysteries of Hawaii. We're going to bring up the Brady Bunch at some point. But that was my earliest memory. But wow, this is a mysterious, haunted, ancient place full of a lot of mysteries. We're going to talk about one of his books. He had another book come out this spring. I posted a review for this book recently. I think we're going to roll introduction because we have a lot to do. So welcome, everyone. And here we go. There exists a realm beyond our wildest dreams, a realm beyond reality that the gatekeepers and guardians have always told us consists of nothing but tricks of the eye, weather balloons, swamp gas, sand cranes, fairy tale myths of monsters, crackpot conspiracy theories, and desperate cries for attention.
We know this realm exists, and it's just beyond the horizon. The preset path, the well-worn walkways where the cynics want us to stay.
Instead, give this a listen. Put on your headphones, adjust your volume, close your eyes, and fasten your mental seatbelts, because the twilight-tinged turnoff from reality's alluring highway is looming just ahead.
We're about to leave the plane of the easily explained, couldn't possibly be's, and the no way I just saw what I saw's, for the spaces and places where everything is possible, and if you stay long enough, even probable. We're about to take a journey into the outer realms. Okay, good to see everyone. Hello, Lori. Hello, Colette. We were just talking to Colette. She's got this amazing thing going on in a warehouse, Amazon warehouse in England, where like clockwork, these 3 doors at like 10 to 15 minute intervals, only on a Thursday night, mind you, and between the hours of 10 and 11, close on their own. It's amazing. So our life is pretty fun. Mm-hmm. I want to give a shout out to the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft and Magic in Cleveland, Ohio, not far from here. Hi, Craig. We had on the curator, the director of the museum, Steve Intermill, a couple weeks ago. A couple months ago, we had Tony Rotondo, who is the owner. And it's a beautiful, go on the Buckland Museum, get this with the Elias Levi Baphomet. Hi, Brent. Hi, we're gonna address your question for sure. Okay, let's get right into it. With the bio. Lopaka Kapanui is a native Hawaiian storyteller, author, actor, kumuhula, cultural practitioner, former professional wrestler, husband, father, and grandpa. Sometimes known as the ghost guy, Lopaka makes a business of leading guests into some of the darkest, spookiest places on the island of Oahu, and we're going to hear about some of those things tonight. His family's legends, history, customs, and protocol were passed down to Lopaka in the traditional Hawaiian way. And I should have asked him, but molelo, from mouth to ear, oral tradition, sitting at the feet of his mom and his auntie as they related the lessons to him. He learned of the night watchers, which is the subject of one of his stories in this book I'm reading from, who only appear during a particular moon phase. He learned why it's important to never share food with anyone while walking through a haunted place. He has a great story about pork. He also learned the significance of the proper prayers to offer ceremonial blessings, to enter or leave a sacred place, to ask for protection before gathering in the greenery in the depths of Hawaiian forest, and the importance of intent. It goes on and on. But in March 1994, Lopaka followed Fred's recommendation, went on a ghost tour with the famed historian and author of Obake Files and the Chicken Skin Ghost Story series, Glenn Grant. At the time, he had no idea he was about to meet his future mentor. Lopaka quickly realized the stories Glenn told were the same tales of legend and history his own kupuna had shared with him. When Glenn passed in 2003, he carried the business, and which he's doing now, which he's going to talk tonight. Just so much here. Guys, get the book, read the bio, and you're going to get to know him tonight. But I just want to say, in March of 2021, he had a new book come out, Mysteries of Hawaii. And also, he was recently honored by the Hawaiian State Legislature for carrying on the storytelling tradition. Without further ado, welcome to the show. Aloha.
Welcome.
Aloha. That's a lot of information.
It's a lot. When the bios come in and it's hard earned and it's good stuff, I can tell the difference between quality bio and fluff, and there's just quality bio there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've told my people, specifically my wife, just leave out the professional wrestling part. Just it's not important.
Well, I'm a professional pirate when I'm not doing this, so we all have our things. But welcome to the show. We're gonna jump right in.
Yeah, so we saw you on the Three Beards podcast, and
Oh.
of course, we were just enthralled and knew immediately that we had to have you on the show. So,
Yeah, so next day I ordered your book. I wrote to Craig. Craig's with us tonight, Craig Ansel from Three Beards. I asked his permission. I said, hey, do you mind if I, and he said, no, not at all. And we tried to do things the right and good way. And
Very cool.
we invited you as a guest, and you agreed. So here you are.
That's very cool. Not so
Yeah.
many people do that. That shows a lot of character and integrity.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, I've been looking forward to this.
Oh, yeah.
Weeks.
For months.
We just couldn't wait to have the chance to talk to. And one of the first things we would love to know is, how did you become involved in storytelling?
Oh, yikes. Well, the short story is, as a kid in my karate class, and believe it or not, my sensei was Mr. Miyagi.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so
cool.
2 years ago at his services, we found out that he was actually a consultant on the actual Karate Kid movie.
Oh, nice.
And so I thought a lot of what Pat Morita was saying sounded familiar, So the point in that is that in Hawaii, there was this guy called Lippy Espenda, and he was the guy who sold cars at the Aloha Car Mart. And he also had his own show. And from end to end, this guy just never stopped talking. And so Sensei Miyagi told me one night, he said, I'm going to call you Lippy from now on because you never stop talking. And you're always back there telling stories. He's, I don't know what you're talking about, but your name is Lippy from now on. And so that's kind of how it got started until I met my boss. And the method in which he decided to train me when he wanted to move on to other things, as far as the ghost tours, was not to take any notes, just like my mom did. No notes. I talk, you listen, and at the end of the lesson, you repeat everything back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so at that time, his ghost tour was bus tour. You got out and walked around. It was from 7 to 2 in the morning, and there were 7 stops, and every stop had about 2 hours of ghost stories memorized. So it was crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
That is just a whole nother level of, I was the creative director of Ghost Walks in North Carolina on the Crystal Coast, and would walk around town, and there were all these stops. It went about 90 minutes, but I had pages of outlines and all that, and they frightened actors away. I don't know if you train other people to do what you do or how you do it, but it is not for the faint of heart at all.
No.
To get those stories in your bones as the best storytellers that I know. I know a lot of Appalachian storytellers, and they say, till you have it in your bones, like you don't share it. And so that's amazing. How about the ghost walks?
Let's see. So my boss passed away 2003, June 19th. We just had a memorial thing for him, which we do every year. Last year, I don't know if we mentioned this before, but I told 100 ghost stories, and that was 6 hours straight. And I don't know what I was thinking. But at the end, I literally had to have my wife and my kids help me out of the chair.
I could imagine.
Yeah. So the ghost walks are what we can only do now because of the pandemic.
Mhm.
And those are like about an hour and 45 minutes. And there's two that are in the downtown area around the palace. One is called Ghost of Old Honolulu, and that's the actual original ghost tour that started here in 1974 when my boss used to do it. And then there's Urban Legends of Hawaii. And then on Wednesday and Fridays, we have the Waikiki Night Marcher Tour.
Mhm.
And so that's all of the Night Marcher lore, especially in the most crowded tourist destination in Hawaii. So nobody believes or knows that there are night marchers going through the tourist destination in Waikiki. And so they're shocked to find out that they're actually staying at a hotel that's built on the Night Marcher's path.
Wow, and we're gonna talk about the night marchers and more. That was one of my favorite stories in Mysteries of Honolulu, but not yet for the book. Go ahead.
Not yet. Right now, we'd like to know, aside from that, what is the most unusual thing that ever happened to you on a ghost walk?
Pick a couple if you want.
Oh my God. Okay, so when I was taking over the bus tours from my boss, I was still wrestling at that point, and I was already back home. It was toward the end of my career, and so the short story is, whenever I had a wrestling match, I would let my boss's secretary know I've got a match on this day or this weekend, so don't schedule me for a tour. And so this one particular weekend, I told her a month ahead of time and actually wrote it down, and she scheduled me anyway. And so the tour started at 7. The match started at 7. And so I was stuck. So I got on the bus and the tour is starting, and I get on the phone and I call down to the venue, the house, and I call the booker and I say, listen, I can't get out of this ghost tour. So what are we going to do? He says, I don't know. He says, you're the main event. I said, okay, so can you make me like the first match? He says, what are you thinking? And so what I was thinking is what I told the people on my tour after we discussed how everything was going to work out. I said, listen, I'm scheduled for a professional wrestling match tonight. That's where we're going to go right now. We're going to get to the venue. You guys are going to empty the bus. The entire front row is reserved for you guys. I'm going to go downstairs, talk to the booker. I'm going to run in the match, run into the ring, win the match, and I'll leave through the side door. And then you guys head back to the bus. And that's exactly what happened.
Oh man, you are a man after my own heart.
One of the best I've ever heard. Could you imagine being on a ghost tour and then it's like, oh, by the way, we're gonna stop by and have a wrestling match? That sounds
and they were probably totally into it, right?
Right. There's actually a video that somebody took so there's proof that happened. But when I got on the bus, everybody's just staring at me, and all I said was, so is anybody going to give me any trouble tonight? Everybody's like, no, it was the greatest thing I ever saw.
That's what I was going to say. Like, everybody was enthralled with anything you had to say after that, I'm sure, for the rest of the time. Yeah.
You don't even want that part of your life in your bio, but obviously, right. So here in the contiguous United States, as they say, like my great grandfather used to say, we used to watch the wrestling on Saturday mornings and, all that kind of stuff. And he would say, that's a fake. Like we didn't know. Is it different in Hawaii? Do you play characters and is it all scripted out or?
Yeah, it's basically the business the way it was, before the WWE. Yeah. And what we would say is that, back then the business was tight. So everybody kept the secret. Mm-hmm. And myself, along with my lifelong friend, we were actually trained in the Japanese strong style or the hard style. So we learned how to fight first before we learned, the work. Mm-hmm. And, the shoot or the catch as can style, we also learned Muay Thai. And I remember the trainer telling us, this is so if you're in a match and, things are supposed to happen a certain way and the guy decides he doesn't want to cooperate, you can, put him in a headlock in a certain kind of way and you can make all the veins burst in his eyeballs.
Whoa.
Yeah. And all you have to say
that?
A couple of times.
Wow.
And that's when you tell the guy, listen, are we going to work? We're going to go home, feed our families, or are you going to be a jerk?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating. It's just another style of storytelling. Years ago, when I first got out of college, one of my first professional acting gigs was doing a commercial with Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Oh, cool.
the nicest guy on the planet. And he was like, we are on the road like over 300 days a year. I never see my family. It's the hardest thing, but I love it. And the way he would just be chatting, he wore eyeglasses, which was great, until they would call, ready. And then he would snap into that Jim Duggan thing. And
Right.
it was just so great to experience that. But so let's move on.
Okay. Thank you.
To the book. Yeah, to the book. Well, the audience loves it all. Angelina said, I love watching wrestling, and a bonus would be a ghost story. So you got at least one people.
Two of her favorite things.
So, folks, Mysteries of Honolulu, and now there's a companion, Mysteries of Hawaii, that just did come out. Now, I'm a real bibliophile. I'm a writer. I've written hundreds of reviews, including of this one. Go to New Mystics Reviews, folks. Read the review, and then go out and get this book. There's 4 of them all together. Get them all. But what amazed me was I was expecting it, because I had seen you and I knew you could do the ghost walks and the storytelling. I was so confused about where fact and reality ended. And for like 2 seconds, I got caught up in that. And I was like, well, am I supposed to, are these, and I was like, dude, just take the ride. Like, so can you kind of, what was the genesis of the writing them? And did you do that on purpose? And is there sort of a line between the fact and reality? And take that wherever you want.
A lot of those stories are based on real people who asked to have their names, not included, and also based on real situations according to the police department, the medical examiner, and a lot of it is also myself sitting doing something random, and all of a sudden, boom, story, and I'm right at the keyboard, and it's just coming out, and that's what my wife is for, because everything comes out and she pushes me out of the way. She goes, okay, now editing. Yeah, I drive my wife crazy with semicolons. We had a big argument about semicolons a couple of days ago.
Yeah, you know what? In fiction writing, I never use them.
Right.
I like the dash. The
Right.
dash is my friend. But so when you say they come, I mean, we know a man. He's a Mexican shaman, and he also his lineage goes all the way back to the earliest times as far as the I Ching, and he's written all these books, and they're channeled. He sits there, and they tell. And do some of them come in that
Absolutely.
in that manner? Wow.
In fact, a lot of those stories that I write, most of them I don't remember writing them.
Wow.
And in the content of telling stories, a lot of stories I don't remember saying. So we do these things called ghost storytelling concerts at a theater every quarter. And the program is completely set. There's a list of stories that I'm supposed to tell within, the hour. But a lot of times, as soon as I get on stage, that's out the window and something else happens. And so a lot of times the theater director will ask my wife, that's not on the list. She's like, he's going for it. Like, just let it go.
Yeah.
Hey, Craig, thanks. I see Craig's comment. Thank you so much.
He's good people.
He's awesome.
So let's see. I just want to make right. Okay, great. So
we always ask our guests to share with us some of their earliest experiences of the paranormal.
Okay. My very earliest was living in a place here that we call Kalihi. And the word Kalihi means like the edge or the border. And we lived up in the valley. And I still remember vividly as a little boy, we had this black cat in our house that, was my pet. And one morning I was out in the yard, and it was just done raining. The dew's still on the grass and on the hedges. And that little black cat stuck his head out from underneath the hedges. And so I remember kneeling down and going to pet it like this, and then it suddenly scratched me like this. What I remember is the second I pulled my hand away and I looked at my hand like this, I had the cat's claws under my fingernails. Now, I remember that specifically and running into the house screaming bloody murder. And I remember my mom looking at it, and the next thing I know, I'm laying down on the couch, and this Portuguese feiticeira, I guess sort of like a witch doctor, came and did the candle on my stomach and, the shot glass on top of it. and was doing the incantations. And the next thing I know, claws are gone.
Wow.
And so till this day, I'm not sure if that's something that actually happened or I imagined it. But I remember how vivid the feeling was of having these things like jammed up on the inside of my fingernail. You guys probably know that. It's not comfortable.
Oh no.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a form of torture. So, as Tanya was using the word paranormal, and it's here in this outline, is it more every day in Hawaii? I mean, is this just part of? I mean, here again in the contiguous states, there's so much back and forth and debate. We're constantly trying to show life of proof of consciousness surviving death and all of that. Is it more in the fabric of the islands, as you would say? Like, is it more openly talked about, accepted?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, where we had an era where sugar plantations, pineapple plantations, and so we still have in Hawaii what we call today the plantation mentality, which overall is, not doing anything that'll shame your family or bringing unnecessary attention to yourself. But overall, for the Hawaiian culture, there has always been this understanding that your ancestors are like right there and the veil is very thin. And that's because a lot of times when we buried our family, there's no secret location. They were buried on their property.
Mhm.
Or sometimes the bones were kept in the house. So when you saw your mother's ghost, it was not a bad thing because that's your mom. She's there to protect you.
That just unfolds to make you had a.
No, I was just going to say, I've always felt like, well, not always, but certainly in the last decade or so, like I've come to realize what a detriment I think it is to our culture, our society, that we, death is hidden away. We don't participate in it. It's a secret thing. And, I think that contributes to why we don't, honor the ancestors and embrace, when the spirits show up, people get freaked out. And I'm like, as a medium, I'm like, it's your grandmother. Like, what are you freaking out about? I mean, she's just coming to say hi. And I really feel like, it's kind of been really a detriment for us. So I would love to be immersed in a culture where, that's really just part of it.
Absolutely. I mean, death is the inevitability of the end of life. It's a transition. So, new life can begin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's completely unavoidable. You cannot avoid life, birth, life, sickness, and death. And so what's important, I think you'll agree, is what we do in between those 2 points, is what absolutely matters. And so I always joke with people on my tours or, at the lectures, I ask them about their experiences and, and depending on what they tell me, I'll tell them, oh, but seems like you're a clairvoyant, or it looks like you got a little bit of ESP. Wow, I didn't know that. I said, and I joke with them, I say, that's up until now, you've only been walking around in life with a nickel in your pocket, but now you have a penny. And it takes them a couple of seconds, like, what do you mean? I'm like, what's a nickel and a penny? 2 coins? I'm like, no, it's 6 cents.
That's excellent. I think of the great teacher Ram Dass, who said, dying is perfectly safe. I mean,
Absolutely.
If we could get to that point, it would be amazing. Something to discuss, not on the list, but I saw an interesting article, CNN. Okay. But still, even the fact that they were tackling it. So through the pandemic, there were so many people who could not say goodbye properly to their loved ones. You were talking about the rituals being hidden away, but we do have rituals that we very closely honor. And they had to watch on video, or they just weren't allowed to go. They weren't allowed to be with them. So there's this big uptick in reports of visitations from beyond the veil. That's a promising artifact of a tragic occurrence. What are your thoughts on that?
Especially here in Hawaii during the pandemic, there was a big spike in domestic violence.
Yes, here too.
But there was also a big spike in, for lack of a better term, spiritual activity in people's homes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get calls all the time to do cleansing, blessings and cleansings, but it really picked up during the pandemic. And when I went to these places, the blessing or the cleansing didn't really happen because I would tell the people, you're home all the time. The spirits are home all the time. They're sick and tired of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We experienced that in North Carolina where we were investigating a library, and if we overstayed our welcome, they let us know.
Oh, librarian.
Yeah, we tried to keep it to it started at what, 9:30. Oh, which brings up a question. So everybody insisted that they only wanted to go on this ongoing investigation or only do the ghost walks after dark. So in the summer hours, as a matter of business, you start where there's light in the early tour, and everybody complains about the early tour. Do you just do the ghost walks at night?
There's a bus tour that we used to do that started pretty near sunset, and we'll do it once things clear up. It's called the Haunted Battle of Nu'uanu, and it's the famous battle of King Kamehameha. And the track was from Waikiki all the way up to the lookout that divides the windward and leeward side. And so it's basically tracing the path of the battle as close as possible, and all the spots where they happen along the way are all haunted. So by the time we get to the last spot where the battle concluded and thousands of people were killed, it's pitch black, no lights. So that's psychologically, I think that gives the desired effect.
Yeah. And we always kept the lights off and did things with a flashlight in the library. For us, it just heightens the senses of, we wanted to give people an experience to these things around. You're very big on training to use the senses, be aware of them. You've written a book on it. But as far as that, it's nighttime, so it's spookier kind of, that's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah. And for myself on the tours, I always say, this experience is not about me. It's about all of you.
Yeah.
And I jokingly say, and depending upon what's going on in your life right now, will depend upon what happens tonight. So think about it.
Yeah. As we go in to help people with hauntings and clear properties and all, that's one of the first things we ask now. Like, what is going on in your family? Are people agitated, going through hard sleep cycles? All of that. It really is a relationship rather than this idea that I'm being haunted.
Yeah. And it sort of empowers them too to know that they actually have a part in what might happen, if that makes any sense.
Oh, absolutely. It does. Yeah. So there was one story. I mean, your stories are fascinating, and we're gonna give you the mic in a little bit to tell some of your absolute favorites. But you told a story about a bus tour and a plate of pork.
Oh,
and if you could tell, I love that.
Going, oh my gosh, that's
like, you want to talk about proof of these things. This is it. So,
oh my God,
take it away.
All right. So the short story is our volcano goddess Pele, hot-tempered, passionate. Everybody knows this about her personality. And, she creates the earth, brings new life. And she meets this guy who her entire family tells her is the absolute wrong guy. Do not get involved with him. Don't take his number. But in cases like these, when our loved ones and friends tell us that's not the person, it's the very thing that we do. We get involved with that person anyway. But in this situation, Pele is involved with the pig god Kamapua'a. And the reason they tell her that he's wrong for her is because he's everything that's wrong with the man. He's strong, he's arrogant, he's resourceful, he's arrogant, he's a shapeshifter, and he's arrogant. But when they finally consume the relationship, according to the story, their lovemaking happens for 3 weeks straight. Yeah, it's good to be a god.
Yeah.
But by the end of it, she's like, okay, so in these situations where it's the wrong person for you, you always note that person never moves you in with them. They move in with you. Mm-hmm. And that's what the pig god did. So now he's cohabitating with her in her volcano. And every day he goes out and does whatever pig gods do. But pretty soon, people from nearby villages come to the rim of the crater, and they look down and they see Pele, and they call out to her, "Eh, Pele, eh. Ayano kaukani ke kahawai, me ke kahiwa hinea." Pele, your husband is in the river with another woman. And Pele looks up and says, ah, and chases them away. A few days later, more people from another nearby village. Awe Pele, ike kumula'au me elua mauahine ho'okahimanava ayano kaukane. Alas, Pele, in the branches of a breadfruit tree, there is your husband with 2 women at once. And Pele looks up and says, Sa! And chases them away. But it's not until her own sisters appear and come down into the volcano, and they sit around her and massage her shoulders and her hands and brush out her hair. They tell her, Awe Pele, ku'ukai kuhine, kaukane ayano oya, ikamoana, ihapuna, me elima mauahine ho'okahimanava. Alas, Pele, your husband is in the oceans of Hapuna, making love with 5 women at once. This is undeniable because it's her own family saying this. When the pig god is returning back home, he notices something strange and says to himself, how wondrous this is. A tidal wave coming down from the mountain. But when he looks closer, he realizes it's a tidal wave of lava, and he says to himself, oh, damn it, she found out. And so as he's running for his life, the flame is hot on his heels, and he's now on what we call the windward side of the Big Island. Papa'iko Puna, he can't escape. So finally he goes to the forest of Panaeva, and he finds a hill that still exists today. It's called Kauku. And he lays flat on the ground, face down, and he begins to pray. And so roots from great trees rise up. The earth rises up, holding back the lava flow. And then he prays for the Ua Kanile Hua, the Hilo rain. The rains come, cool the fire and the flames. And Pele appears and says, well, I guess I can't kill you. So what are we going to do? And he says, let's make this agreement that from this moment on, with the exception of Molokai, where I was defeated in battle, the Ko'olau side of every island will be mine, the windward side, lush, green, filled with fine, misty rains, and that the Kona side of every island will be yours, the leeward side, dry, arid, hot, insufferable, just like you, my love. And so they agree to this godly TRO. You stay on your side, I'll stay on my side. None shall cross into the other's territory. And so one night on a bus tour, the bus is going up from the windward side, going through the tunnel to the leeward side, and it starts to chug. Chung, chung, chung. And the bus driver, older Portuguese man, gets on the microphone and he's losing his mind. Who the hell has pork on my bus? I know somebody's got pork. And he's swearing all the colorful words there are to swear. And he's just going on. Anybody have pork? Anybody have pork? It's like, no, nobody has any kind of pork item, nothing. And pretty soon the yelling stops and his hand goes up like this and calls me to the front. And I lean over and I said, Archie, what's up? He said, I forgot. I didn't eat my lunch. There's a plate of roast pork underneath my chair. Can you get rid of it? The bus is now chugging along, and right on the edge, like not a foot away from us, is the fall into the valley. And so he opens the door, and I'm scraping the meat off, praying and saying, I'm sorry. It's my fault. Sorry. The second all that is done, the bus starts. No problem.
Oh, that's amazing.
So you cannot bring pork from the side of the Pig God's Island to the side of Pele's Island.
Wow. So our good friend Lori, a team member of ours, says that's an amazing story, beautifully told. I was sitting here going, how it's like a private audience to hear. That was beautiful.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, I'm a storyteller, and like tomorrow I'm gonna get up and start working out again. Wow. That was just amazing, and the language is so beautiful. Being a storyteller, being a writer, I was thinking several things. In so many indigenous cultures, and I come from Sicily, where it sounds a hell of a lot more like a lecture, but story is so important in instructing. and I've read about some indigenous cultures where many of the instructive stories were created because someone screwed up, and they screwed up bad. And a story was created to tell that person about their own screw up. And then it was like, this is a good story. We can carry, I'm sure this mistake is going to be made again. Is that kind of storytelling, like you were just telling, is that very part of the fabric and very instructive and the kind of the go-to in Hawaii?
Especially with the older generation, for myself growing up, but now here in Hawaii, we have schools taught entirely in the Hawaiian language from preschool to college.
Wow.
You know, so there's been this resurgence in the last 30 years of reviving Hawaiian poetry, Hawaiian riddling. It's called ho'opapa, and in the old days, these riddling contests were done with your life as the bet, your bones.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So you had to be really sharp to know how to answer or solve these riddles. And of course, you know, Hawaiian poetry and music, a lot of that is veiled in what we call kauna, or double meaning. So if I'm meeting my wife for the first time and all of a sudden, you know, there's this surge of love in my heart, I don't go up to her and say, "Hey, I love you. Want to get married?" You know, I'll tell her, you know, your beauty is like the fine mist of the rain on my skin, leaving a sheen. You're like the fully blossomed red lehua flower. And I will tell her, if you become my love, I will not leave your nest empty. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
I
wow.
love
Cyrano
it.
de Bergerac.
Mhm.
Yeah. But all of that is when you think about the double meaning, it all has to do with sex.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That is the great subtext of all. You know, I write a lot of historical fiction, and I love historical fiction. And probably about 8 years ago, it struck me, if there wasn't this male-female thing, what the hell would history really be about?
Absolutely.
It's constantly about. So so that Pele story is just, you know, and it's a hard thing when we both in the past had spouses that had affairs or whatever, and it becomes, even for an intelligent person, it becomes that great no, the great denial.
Yeah.
And so the fact that it takes her sisters.
Well, I was thinking about, like, I could completely relate to the part about everyone told her this is not the right guy for you. And I was like, been there, done that.
Yeah. We all have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And pride is
Pride.
the other great engine
Right.
of story. So we promised our friend, I hope he's still with us, Brent Rains. Brent Rains, for those of you deeply into the paranormal, you'll know this book, of course, or John Keel. A great picture of John with his pipe there, investigated the Mothman and so many other things. John is one of my heroes as an investigator because he didn't believe it. As a matter of fact, his book, Jadu, he went to the Middle East to debunk fakers. He learned magic to debunk fakers. He was one of these guys and got to the point where he could no longer deny that something was actually going on. So that's kind of cool. So Brent wrote to me today when I announced that you were going to be on the show. And I cleared this with you first, that it wasn't way off the track. So in this book, guys, if you're into John Keel, I love to give love. In Hawaii, a mysterious UFO-like ball of light is called the Akualele, which means flying god. According to Hawaiian-born UFO researcher Kalani Hanohanu, this light is also something dark. The Akualele are devices manufactured by Kahuna sorcery, whose main function is to harm or kill another human being. He also said that they are supernaturally generated light phenomena. Now, so many of the modern UAPs are this light phenomena, which is an interesting talking point. I'm sure, Brett, if you're still here, if you want to steer this in a certain way. But have you experienced these things, and what can you add to what they are?
The Akualele, yes. The first one I saw when I was 9 years old. Our next door neighbor's a Portuguese family, the Pereiras, and the daughter Debbie was my friend. We all played together as kids. And one night, They were screaming and yelling and shouting, at their house, and you could hear pounding on the floor and the walls, and it went on all night. So the following afternoon after school, on the way home, I saw Debbie and I asked her what happened. And so we stopped at the store, got a couple of sodas and some Fritos, and she said, once a year, the Akualele comes and it finds my father, and it circles in the sky 3 times. And she said, after the 3rd time, it comes straight down to where my father is. And it jumps on his shoulders, and he has to fight it the entire night, because if he doesn't, it will take him.
Wow.
And so, without thinking, the following year, just completely forgot about it. I hear them outside in the yard, and I hear Debbie's mother screaming, "No, no, no, go back." And so me and my parents run out of the house, and we look up, and there it is. Huge red flaming ball of fire. And at the end, it looked like it had, I don't know if it was 2 horns, but it was sort of like this, and just made this buzzing sound. And then, and I remember Debbie's father running into the house, and I remember it hitting the house, and the tiles just going, and the whole night you could hear him running around the house, pounding the walls, and he had to keep doing it until sunrise. So the backstory is, when Debbie's father and his 2 brothers were young boys, there was a kahuna who lived up the road, and everybody knew who the old Hawaiian man was. Nobody bothered him, and he bothered nobody else. But his yard was well manicured. He had all the plants that he needed around the house. Humble one bedroom cottage, and he had a dog. And so one day, Debbie's father and the 2 uncles, sort of not believing all these rumors about this kahuna, hopped over the fence and peed in the dog bowl.
Oh boy.
And made the dog drink it. And then also defecated in their hands and smeared it all over the dog, and then took off to the beach, which was across the street. The following afternoon, oh, thanks, Greg. That's a crazy story. The following afternoon, Debbie says her dad, his 2 brothers, sitting on the steps of their old home. The parents were sitting on the porch, and the old Hawaiian man walks down the driveway, and they see him. And he's got a bowl with something in it, and he puts down a little mat, puts the bowl down on the grass, and starts to pray and chant in Hawaiian. And so the mother knows what's going on, and she's like, "No, no, no! What did we do? We didn't do anything wrong. Stop, stop, stop!" And the old Hawaiian man says, "Kaukiki kane kolu, your 3 sons, wahana ino lako ilio. They made trouble to my dog. They left their mimi, their urine in his bowl, and then all over his kino, his body, his kukai, his excrement. From now, once a year, I send them akualele, all 3, and they have to fight it the whole night. If they don't fight, wamake, or it will take them." The parents are begging, but it's too late. And so Debbie said, from that time, every year, the father and the 2 uncles have had to do that. In 2008, we had a ghost tour at a very old cemetery on the North Shore, and we were just walking into it. And I kind of glanced up like that, and there was a green akualele coming over the trees. It was green, long tail at the end, flying very slowly, but you could see something turning around in the front part of the akualele, loud buzzing sound. And so when I saw it, I said to myself, "Oh, Awe, I pray for the one who this is intended for, and I hope they survive the night." What's interesting is on the island of Kauai, at the missile base, and here in Oahu, in a place called Makapu'u, there have been, I don't even know what the word is, UFO sightings consistently, probably the most in those 2 locations. And so I believe that UFOs have been visiting Hawaii since ancient times. And within the last year, there's been an increase in UFO sightings in the entire archipelago.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. I'm speechless, which is bad because this is on radio a couple of times. So
Right.
I apologize, but
Speechless on radio,
everybody's
but-
got to be living. So
but that
Craig
was a
Craig asked a
powerful
story
story.
here. Ronald, I think the red thing you're seeing on the ceiling is just it's part of the cover in the
Part
background,
of the background
of
of our
the book here.
yeah. I
Oh,
keep
yeah.
So
seeing that
it's just the way it
pictures
showed
of
up.
flower.
Anyway,
Correct.
I went back and forth and I didn't want to be a copycat and have you tell the same stories, but since he brought it up and we have some time, it really is a very profound story if you could tell it.
Okay. So, very quickly, and I know people are going to want to ask, how is an ukulele made?
Oh yeah.
The way an ukulele is made is if someone around you completely hates you and you absentmindedly leave out your fingernails, your toenails, your hair, the stuff you blow into the Kleenex. Ladies, if you leave your personal feminine stuff around, that's how it's made.
So DNA.
Wow.
They need your DNA.
Yeah.
So it sounds like some kind of parallel with voodoo a little.
Yeah, except the culmination of all of that in some ukulele practices, they also need a dead body.
Oh wow.
But it depends on the practitioner.
Mhm.
Right. Is there some form of, speaking of dead bodies and,
You're welcome,
and
Brent.
voodoo, is there some correlation with zombie or in Hawaii? Like a walking dead, a reanimated?
There's something here called kupaku. And kupaku is the practice of capturing the person's spirit right after it dies, especially if the person dies tragically or dies by mistake. The practice is to capture the spirit as soon as you can, put it into a gourd, and then you have to massage it back into the body from the big toe all the way up until it fills the body. And then, the stuff that you get in the corner of your eye in the morning, when that happens, that's how you know the spirit's back. And that's a process that takes 40 days and 40 nights.
Wow.
Wow.
And all the prayers are nonstop.
Wow. And then is that person then enslaved to you or
No.
it can also be benevolent?
Yeah, it's supposed to be benevolent, but
Wow.
there's some people who do it in order to control, that person's spirit.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so we're gonna
This-
go from
the story.
everybody's stunned now. So hold on to your seats, folks, because it's gonna get interesting.
Okay, so the story goes that a few years back, I got a call from a very nice Hawaiian couple, and they asked me. They said, "We think our daughter's possessed. Can you come over and help us?" And I said, I'm not an exorcist, but here's the number to a few people that I know of who do perform exorcisms. And one of them is a Hawaiian priest, a kahu, and his name's Kaleo Patterson. I recommended him and a couple of other people. And a short time later, the Hawaiian couple called back and said, we called everybody you recommended and it didn't work out. And a few people said that the process of an exorcism probably takes almost a year because of all the red tape, and the approval and all that stuff. And they said, depending. But other than that, they told me the other people they talked to called them stupid, and just berated them and just told them to stop watching movies and paranormal shows. And so they were at their wits' end, and they asked me, would you mind just coming over and talk to her? And so I went. And when I met them in the kitchen of their home, literally the husband was like this the whole time when he spoke. The wife was a bit more calm than he was, but all he said was, up the stairs, that first landing, that door to the left, that's her bedroom. Just knock on the door. And so I'm going up the stairs, and I noticed that halfway up, they're not coming with me. And I asked them, I said, are you guys coming? And they're like, and so I knock on the door. And when the door opens, it's a very nice young Hawaiian girl. And she opens the door and plops herself on the bed. And, she's on her laptop. And there's this awkward silence. And I asked her, I said, so your parents tell me that they think you're possessed. And she's like this. And she stops and looks at me and she goes, yeah. and back on the laptop. And I said, so why do your parents think you're possessed? And she's like this, and she stops, and she takes her hand, and she goes like this, like right around the room. And so what she's showing me is that her entire room is decorated with everything Twilight. So Twilight posters on the wall, on the ceiling, pillowcases, bed sheets, the stack of books. And I remember the room being colored a dark velvet color. That's the only way I can describe it. And I said, wait a minute, so your parents think you're possessed because of Twilight? And she said, yeah. I mean, that and the other thing. And I told her, I don't mean to be maha'oi. I'm not trying to be intrusive, but what's the other thing? And matter of factly, she said, I came out to them. I told them I'm gay. I'm a lesbian. And that kind of caught me for a second. And I said, wow. I said, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that happened. And I remember her giving her my card and telling her that anytime she wanted to talk, she could meet with myself and my wife and just talk about anything. Doesn't even have to be about that. And she said, well, thank you. And she said, by the way, my name is Sienna. I said, hi, Sienna. I shook her hand. I said, I'm Lopaka. And so I went downstairs, and the husband is like this. And he said, oh, my God, did anything happen? Is anything floating around? Was there the smell of sulfur? Did she physically assault you? I said, no, everything's fine. It's fine. In fact, I think maybe you guys should go see a pastor or a counselor or something, because Sienna's perfectly normal, just a regular college-age girl. And at that point, the wife pushes the husband out of the way. And I remember she grabbed my coat like this, and she was right in my face, and she said, no, you don't understand. The thing that's possessing our daughter, that's Sienna. Our daughter's name is Carolyn. I hear the door open, and I look up the stairs, and the girl's door is open, and she's peeking out the door like this. And she gives me this smirk like I'm an idiot and steps back into her room. The door slowly closes. You hear the lock engage. And then from the door, the wall, all the way down to where the kitchen is, that whole section of the house. So I still believe to this day, and I always say it like it's a joke, but I sincerely believe that I probably screamed like a girl.
Totally understandable. Wow.
But, yeah.
I remembered the story, but as you were getting up to the end where the reveal happens, I just like up my spine, just like it did the first time I heard the story. It just chills.
The sun must have hold on here. I mean, as much as we're enjoying the ghost stories, it was a little too dark there. So there we go. We'll adjust it. Okay, so we're coming to the end, but let's move on.
So,
wow, that was just wow. I know.
I need to take a beat. I mean, that's
yeah.
wow.
I do so much social justice work, and the first part of the story, I always forget the end because I get so wrapped up in this poor misunderstood girl, and then it goes wow, just like the stories in here. It's like layers. There's just layers.
Yeah.
And then it goes the other way.
Yeah. In a heartbeat. Did you ever hear like any further?
Yeah. They actually did family counseling and therapy, and they did get a hold of someone who actually resolved the problem.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And for myself, I would have pursued it myself further, but I got a wife and kids and grandkids, so that's a place that I can't go to anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, a big part of what we do is when we know we're out of our depth, or you need to pass on the information to someone who that's what they concentrate on.
Yeah.
I keep, someone keeps asking me, do you guys, how to deal with like demonic attachments? And I'm like, that is not something that we do.
No, we barely kept a woman from becoming possessed one night, just 4 or 5 hours of prayer. And that's, we were there and it was happening. And it's like a woman goes into, labor, the water breaks. Okay. You're delivered a bit. Is that kind of thing. You wouldn't go around going, oh, by the way, I have experience now in delivering baby. No.
Yeah.
That was about the heaviest That was about the heaviest. But Brent had a follow-up question about the
Mhm.
ukulele. Do the attacks always happen once a year for the rest of the person's life?
For this particular family, that was the case.
Right.
But in normal cases, the ukulele it only takes one time.
Mhm.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. So these guys
So
were pretty strong.
That was
Yeah.
pretty hard to
But
pull off.
Wow.
that kahuna's intent was to make it last as long as possible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because they weren't aware, all they had to do was go back and apologize, make some sort of form of an apology,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sure. Wow. Well, so we're going to move on.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, I love the Brady Bunch. And there was an episode. It was really the first time. I mean, I'm sure in school or whatever, I probably had seen pictures of Hawaii, but they had that episode where they actually went there.
Two-parted.
And yeah, and there was so much to see in the episode. And I remember just thinking, oh my gosh, what an amazingly beautiful, beautiful place. And of course, ever since then, have wanted to go. It hasn't happened yet, but someday, whether in this life or another, I definitely will go to see. But the family goes and they find this sort of talisman totem. I believe it was in a cave. It was like Greg or one of the boys, I think, found it, and they didn't really respect it. They didn't really understand it.
All kinds of terrible things happened, and they had to return it.
And they had to, and then they had to show respect and everything. Do you find a lot of people come to the island and behave in a similar manner, and then learn
Come
that
to
they
experience
need to
those
have
kinds of
some
things?
respect?
Yeah, more like misbehave, even worse than what happened in the Brady Bunch. We have a thing here about visitors taking lava rocks from the volcano.
Oh.
And, culturally, we believe that, every facet of the volcano is a part of Pele's body.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are documented accounts of people taking lava rocks from Volcanoes National Park when it's known that you can't. There's signs. And I don't think they send it to the Volcanoes National Park anymore, but they would start getting boxes of lava rocks with letters that say, take these damn things back.
Wow.
It's ruined my life. The second we got home, my partners screwed me on an investment. My wife left me. My dad was killed in a car accident. So there's tons and tons of boxes that are returned like that, with tons of letters of bad fortune that have befallen people who have, taken it against the better advice of a local person or a park ranger. And, that's because a lot of people who come here make the mistake of thinking we're a third world country and the rules don't apply to them.
Yeah. Yeah. What does
Yeah.
Hunter S. Thompson say? The number one rule is don't burn the locals, especially when the locals have locals, not the locals. The locals have that kind of power. So Lori has a question. First, she says, what a pleasure it is to see you and hear these amazing stories. Truly amazing. What is your necklace made of, and what is the meaning?
The necklace is made of dog's teeth, specifically the canines.
Wow.
And so this was handmade for me by a brother of mine in our practice. And it was given as a gift, but it's also sort of a form of protection. So no, we're not abusing dogs and we're not stealing dogs' teeth, but there's a cultural significance to this and the relationship that my brother and I have as close friends and, comrades in the practice that we both indulge in.
Yeah, that goes to a great that goes not to great, it goes to the next question. Lori, thank you for setting me up.
Thank you.
You are a kumuhula and a cultural practitioner. What does that entail? It sounds like it dovetails into what you were saying here.
So a kumuhula is someone who's mastered the art of hula, Hawaiian dance, both ancient and modern. And you get to that level and you're allowed to teach. But the process to get there is almost the same as the torturous training in professional wrestling. Cultural practitioner probably would equate to what we know as a kahuna.
Mm-hmm.
So the award that I got from the state legislature, the state of Hawaii, was for being a master storyteller. So if I were in the capacity of kahuna, I would be a kahuna or a master of storytelling, which is a tall order because storytellers were also meant to recite and memorize the genealogy of high-ranking chiefs that they would recite, orally and publicly. And if you made one step, one burp, you'd be killed.
Wow.
Wow.
High stakes. They don't mess around
They're
with
not
the.
messing around.
It reminds me of the Aztec and the Mayans playing the ball game, the sacred ball game. Tells the story of the cosmology and all, and the losing team really lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a streak you didn't come back from. So
No.
I had a quick
Yes,
question,
please.
kind of going back to the lava rocks. You had mentioned if the young boys and the family had only known that all they needed to do was apologize, then they could have avoided the lifelong experiences. Would it be the same for folks who took the lava rocks and then something? Do they need to apologize, or is it too late then?
No, there's still time. Once they realize their transgression and they're sincere in their apology, if they want, they can actually come back and take it to that spot. And I've witnessed myself people at Volcanoes National Park. In 1991, this guy's loading a couple of big chunks of lava rocks into the van, and the family screaming at him, "No, get that damn thing out of the van!" He's like, "Oh no, this is it's bull." And a mile down the road, tree right across the road, right in front of his van. And if that's not the sign, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that doesn't wake you up.
Yeah, we're writing a big essay now for a big grant, and it's all evidence. And it struck me when you were on with Craig and the Three Beards, and again tonight. These are the coincidence with the pork and the bus, or the tree and the lava. It's just they're astronomical. I'm not a mathematician, but I mean, come on, folks. So, okay, so let's get to the
cause
good
and
stuff.
effect. Cause and
Yeah,
effect.
yeah, no question.
And I think too, just like a lot of it just goes back to respect. First of all, you don't go to a state park or a sacred place and just take things, and desecrate it in that way. So just
I collect pieces of old blast iron furnaces. I have a whole collection on the shelf over there, and I always stop and I ask, and if you have permission, same way with the bird feather.
Mm-hmm.
Or even the hawthorn tree, the fairy tree out here. When a stick falls off that tree, I say, do I need to burn it ceremonially? Can I keep it? Shall I shape it?
I do that with rocks. Like if I see a rock and like I want it, I ask it. And over here, people here might think I'm nuts. I don't care. The rocks will tell me, yeah, you can take me, or no, thanks. I'm happy where I'm at. So yeah. So I know that Hawaii has been very safe, and I'm so grateful. I have some friends who live over there, and they've been doing a wonderful job. And you mentioned that the storytelling, not the storytelling, I'm sorry, the ghost tours are a little different now. Will that be changing soon? And when it does, what are your plans as a leader of the Ghost Walks?
Yeah, we plan to revive 2 vehicle tours. The first being the Haunted Battle of Nu'uanu. The second one, I would actually like to revive the Haunted Crime Tour. Specific crimes that are real, documented, and the places where they happen are still haunted today. But what we're waiting for is the Supreme Court building to open again, because in the building they have a courtroom museum that they've kept to look the way it looked in 1910.
Wow.
And that courtroom has had a lot of infamous cases, which is why that old courtroom is still haunted. And so, yeah, that would probably be those 2.
So again, on Three Beards, you mentioned your if I remember correctly, you might have to adjust me, but you're considering doing a storytelling marathon, perhaps 24 straight hours of storytelling.
Yeah.
Where is that in the planning?
Well, the person who really has to approve 24 hours of ghost stories is my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. But you estimate that you memorize 24 hours of story?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I
Respect.
can't remember what I had for breakfast, so I can't even imagine.
No, wow.
Because
That's
on our
just
website
amazing.
we have a blog called Ghost Next Door, and every year from July 23rd to Halloween, I write a ghost story every day. So that's 100 stories.
Wow.
So right now I think I have 600 altogether.
Wow.
That's just
Yeah.
incredible.
Terrific. So, how can they access your website, buy your books, and find out more about the ghost walks and the storytelling?
Website is mysteries-of-hawaii.com. Same thing for Instagram and Twitter. On Facebook, it's actually Mysteries of Honolulu. And my wife's asleep. What's the other question? Same thing for the YouTube channel. Yeah.
Oh, neat. Cool. And the books are all on Amazon, I know.
Books are all on Amazon. Probably about 3 more coming up soon.
Wow.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this is the time where we thank you so much
thank
for
you
your
so
time,
much for taking this time with us.
treating us
thank
to
you.
the stories. Let's see here. Would you ever come to the UK and come on a ghost tour, tell your stories to people over here? Do you travel? Do you get requests to travel the world, or do you stay?
Yeah, I get requests to go to cities in the larger United States where transplants from Hawaii live. But the difficulty is getting there.
Yeah, always.
But I think the UK would be fantastic.
Oh, cool. Colette, see if you can set that up.
Could figure something out. I think it would be awesome. Thank you, Ronald.
Craig there you go. Mahalo for the stories. Yes, thank you so much for your time and the stories, your passion, your knowledge. We hope to see you again.
Absolutely. You guys have a great day. Stay out of trouble.
Yeah, we're going to try. Oh, that was awesome.
It was. I
So,
think it was going to be amazing.
Couple of bits of housekeeping. We mentioned a couple times we're working on the final draft of our big essay. That's due in a couple months. So thank you for the audience for great showing respect and great questions and all of that kind of stuff. We are working on, we now have guest books solid or know exactly our plan through October. I still need this, my friend. We have people who are going to come on the show and talk about folklore, vampires. We got the RTC doing Antarctica in about a month. Brent Hunter from something called the Rainbow Bridge Organization. Brent is a big thinker. Let's have a citizens council in the UN. Let's have the general council be more powerful than the Security Council. Wow, imagine that. The UN being exactly what it is designed to do. These are big ideas. You get tempted as you're reading the book to go, hey, good luck, pal. Naive. And then you got to check yourself and go, the only thing standing in the way of change is an agreement to change. That's it. The lack of agreement to change, right? So Nephilim, we're going to have an expert. L.A. Marzulli is going to come on and talk. So, folks, we're going to bring you some great guests. Next week, Tanya's doing live readings. She's going to use a different deck than she used the last 2 times. Come into the chat room. Request a reading. She'll do a single card reading for you. That's next week. We have a father and daughter investigative team with lots of experience coming on the week after that. So tomorrow, I pulled a book. I mentioned the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft and Magic. I bought this book there. This book is from 1953 when this was all getting going, all this UFO and the Air Force and Project Blue Book and all this kind of stuff. And it's by Donald Kehoe. We know someone who was in military intelligence, and he was convinced during his career that Kehoe was a fake. He was not a fake. So disclosure tomorrow. You heard it here, folks. It's going to be like the mafia. They're going to go, I don't know. We don't know nothing. We don't know nothing. There's something, but we don't know nothing. We don't know nothing. Maybe it's the other guys.
Nothing to see.
We don't know. It ain't us. We don't know. And that's exactly what happened in this book. There's going to be big disclosure. There was no disclosure.
So anyway, you heard it here first. I really don't think they've already leaked what they gave to Congress, so everybody kind of knows. It's going to be interesting if they say maybe it's Russia and China, that far advanced of us. I don't think they're going to come out and say, yes, there's an alien threat and it's very real and we have to do a bunch of stuff with the Space Force and militarization and all that kind of business. We're going to tell some things during the Antarctica episode, RTC, where our Navy, or a good part of it, could have been obliterated decades ago, and it wasn't. Yeah, Julie, you can watch it, folks. You can rewatch the show. It's always archived on Into the Outer Realms. I always put it on my personal page, Joey Medea page. It also live streams to YouTube. You can go to the Joey Medea YouTube. I know some people do prefer that. Also, Ronald was with us tonight, very active in the chat room. ERT Radio is now just 3 weeks behind. So you can hear the audio only every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. And then further down the road, Patriot Radio, we have really the archived versions. Julie, we're really hearing that. People aren't getting the notifications. The reach isn't there. We really think that Facebook wants everybody to pay for access. So we're all kind of noticing drops in these kinds of things. Unfortunate, but folks, it is, mark your calendars, every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Let's wrap up because we're going to make some dinner and watch the most recent episode of Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch, which has just been awesomely good this season. If you are wondering about portals, you got to check out this show, right? Portals are a big thing for us, and they are applying big dollars, big technology, and a singing rabbi to prove portals. So it's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing. I'm stunned. So thank you, Ronald.
Thank you, Ronald. Thank you, everyone.
Join us next week when we go into the outer realms,
where the paranormal and the supernatural are just
the normal and the natural. I want to thank my son. He gifted me that wonderful, if you could move just that alien head there. So the set has some nice backlighting to it. Lori, thanks. Travis, my boy Travis. I'm going to spare you my impression of Travis on the off chance that we meet him someday. So everyone, take care.
Have a great night, everyone.
God
Thanks
bless.
for joining us.
Let's hope there's some good disclosure stuff tomorrow. Just something.
There won't be.
Something for all the hard work of all the people working on this. People like Brent Rains. Brent, it was an honor to have you with us tonight. Again, John Keel, the definitive biography, folks. Craig, peace. I'm debuting my new 3 Beards t-shirt next week. I'm so excited. Keep spreading the love to the good people. And good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.